why don't you guys give yourself sort of intros? Because obviously, this is our third show or whatever, and they know who Josh and I are. But James, Jim, if you guys want to just tell people some brief history of who you are, how
Sure.
you got in the shoes, and then where you are, where you live, where you guys are located.
So my name's Jim, MR MRJES73 on IG. And I'm about 40 minutes south of Boston. I'm on the coast, in Massachusetts. And I'm like the old guy of pretty much every circle. um, been into shoes pretty much about 40 years. I was a youngin when I first got my first quote unquote expensive pair of shoes. And it was a Nike Cortez. That's what I chose at the time. And I've kind of been in and out of the culture at times. I took a break for a little bit back in like the mid 2000s, early to mid 2000s. Just kind of lost steam in it. Kind of sold off a lot of stuff. Kept maybe 15 pairs at one point, believe it or not. And I think my highest at that point was like 80 pairs. So I got down to 15. I felt that was a kind of a good rotation for myself. Kept that going for a while. And really picked up steam again, probably around 2015-ish. So last 6 years, like really heavy back into it again. And I'm kind of probably over 200 pairs of shoes right now. Thankfully my wife's nowhere around, so she doesn't. She can't hear that. She'll hopefully she don't watch this. I won't let her watch this. No, just kidding. But it's pretty bad. I still got a passion in me for it. The sneaker culture, obviously, we all know it's changed. But there's something about it that always draws me back in. Just when I'm like, I'm kind of fed up, and you know what, I'm gonna play the background for a bit. Something else draws me back in. Plus, I think just meeting, other heads like you guys here, for instance. You don't get many real people anymore. There's a lot of fakeness in it. So when you finally kind of connect and meet certain people, it kind of helps draw back. Like you're like, all right, there is other people in it for the passion. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
cool. James.
So I'm James Barcenas, the kid.james on Instagram, and I'm the co-host and co-creator of Off the Cut, a sneaker series based here in Dallas. And I have been into shoes. I don't know a time when I wasn't into shoes, to be very honest with you. I've been infatuated with sneakers probably since I first saw, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird going at it, and I couldn't stop.
Nice.
See what I'm saying? So like, yeah, I've been in shoes. What's that? The late '80s.
Yeah.
I'm in Dallas, Texas, holding it down here in the center south, where it's hot.
Yeah.
And the kicks can be just as fire.
Dallas is the new hub. I feel like Dallas is like you guys got a ton of people down there like into sneakers,
Yes,
ton of
sir.
new shops. Obviously knowledge down there. And rumor has it you have a massive collection, a massive collection.
I have a pretty large collection, if you will. I've traveled many a places and picked up many a shoes in my time. I won't tell you exactly how many. But Joe Rogan seems to think I have 5,000 pairs. But I'm sitting at, not that I care what he thinks, but let's just say I have a couple storage units.
Well, you make me look good to my wife, so
Yeah, right.
that's
My wife's collection is no slouch, so she can't get mad at me.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. There you go.
Nice.
Keep it in the family.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we're here today to talk about sneaker collaborations. I think sneaker collaborations were the first thing that sort of drew me into sneakers in my older years. I, like a lot of you, have been into sneakers for a long time. When I was younger, loved running sneakers. Air Max 97s, probably my favorite silhouette of all time. Asics, when I was younger, really loved like the gel sagas and stuff. So it's come full circle, but collaborations are sort of that piece that is very exclusive, they have cool stories, backstories, ideas behind them. So we really wanted to talk about collaborations and where they are right now, because there's been a lot of shifting from what they started as. If you think about Jordan, Michael Jordan, his partnership with Nike was this initially just a collaboration, right? And so now we're at the point where celebrities are getting sneakers, and people on IG and I don't know, video game heads or whatever are getting collaborations. So we really wanted to talk about collaborations and just how we feel about them, where they've gone, and what our thoughts are on them in the modern culture. So I guess, James, just to start off, maybe you could talk about some collaborations that really drew you in and that over the years really sort of stuck out in your mind.
Sure. So for me, collaborations have always been fun. I am a TV producer by trade. So storytelling is absolutely everything for me. And I've always felt like collaborations brought in an outside element per se and brought it, and tied it all together with sneakers. And I've always appreciated that. Obviously, you've got your classics like the pigeon dunk, for example. Speaking of concepts, the lobsters. You know what I'm saying? Those are phenomenal collaborations. And you start going into it also brought a lot of attention to brands that people don't really know much about. I'm going to use New Balance, for example, and I'm not. That's because not to say that nobody knows them, but like in the last 2-3 years, look how much of a hype they've created just based around a lot of their new collaborations. So I've always been a big fan of collaborations. I hate lazy collaborations. I hate and every brand does it, where you just throw out a person, you're like, cool, here's your new shoe. Or I hate when brands don't allow a creative to go bonkers and really show you what they can do. You know what I mean? I've seen some successful ones. I've seen some that I've considered failures, not because they're bad, just because I expected a lot more. And I'm sure we all have. Jerry Lorenzo, let's start with him. And when Nike and his collaboration, that was one that I will consider a win all the way around. Why? Because they let a creative be creative and give us something that we've never seen before. It was not that I care for the shoe very much, but I was excited to see something completely different come out of a collaboration, as opposed to here's your Air Max 95, add some new colors that we've already seen, and we'll throw a stamp on it and it'll be good to go. You know what I mean? I like seeing old, silhouettes coming back. The Joe Fresh goods, bringing back the what is it, 992, and bright and bold. And Dave, as you know, I am a fan of bright colors. The louder the better, brighter the better. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I love seeing things come back around for people like New Balance is the 997s. People know about them, the 990s. These are shoes that stick in people's mind. But to see a 992 come back around, and now look how many of them we're seeing coming around. I like seeing things like that. But then sometimes it's just an inner collaboration, if you will, within the company. Like Nike did it really well when they did the What the Dunk. They just put all of them together and they made this mess of a shoe and something we really hadn't seen before. And I can appreciate that. Now, that's not really collaboration, but it was an outside the box perspective, which is what that's what I want to see. Thank you for the 93 different pairs of Air Max 90s that you've thrown different colors on. How about you do something insane and cool, or bring somebody else? The Bacons, for example, that are now finally about to come back around. That was an excellent collaboration. Simple and clean, but different. You know what I mean? To the sneaker gods and the hope that you're giving me, come on now, don't play with me. And as far as recent collaborations, though, it has become a bit of a mess for me, because I feel like there's a new collaboration every single week. You know what I mean? And it's kind of making me feel like it's losing its luster. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be something rare and interesting and cool. The first 10 from Virgil were awesome, when it came to his collaboration. But now every time there's a new and it just becomes the same redundant thing. Kanye, his collaboration with Nike was fire. Why? Because we didn't see one every 20 minutes. His new collaboration with Adidas, God, if I see another 350, I'm going to throw my... especially when you have a guy as creative as Kanye West, or at least as creative as he was. I don't know what he's doing these days, but like I wanted, it was the same Jerry thing, like let's see something different, something interesting, something cool. I'm sure we'll get to Sean Witherspoon soon enough, but that was a good collaboration from a person that I never felt like deserved it. That's not a diss at him or maybe whatever. I don't care. He's a shop owner who buys vintage stuff, and he has a very successful shops around the country. Congratulations to you, but let's not pretend like that 97.1 wasn't a collaborative effort between other sneakerheads that were involved in that process, as shown. You know, guys like Skate, guys like Fran, who participated in it, and then we see a failure in creativity take place afterwards, right? What we've seen, what he did with Asics, cool, not that great, but cool. You know what I'm saying? It was a recycled idea. And then we went down now with Adidas. I'm glad that it's sustainable, but that shoe is awful. It's booty. I don't care if it's a shell toe. What that's creativity. He drew that on a piece of paper, threw it, and said, make it recyclable material. Here we go. Cool. I hate that. That is so lazy to me. Like if you're going to take a classic, reinterpret it in a way that it makes it interesting, and don't make it look like a 9-year-old did it and then be like, oh my God, it's this the sustainable energy element of it. That's all fine and dandy, but I need to wear that joint. So come on, like let's be creative here, because that's the idea that you're selling me, is that this creative guy, this interesting personality is going to give us a take. Well, that take was not it for me, and I'm sure that people will disagree, and that's totally fine. I don't mind that, but I expect better, especially in the current state of collaborations where you're one up in one another. I need better than something drawn on a piece of paper with a pen that took 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, I want some thought behind it, and I want it to be interesting. And if you want to add sustainable elements to it, great. I'm 100% for that. I don't like lazy, and I expect better, especially from these corporations that are supposed to be making millions of dollars off of our product, off the products that they're selling us. So don't just expect because things sell or because a name's attached to it that it's good, that automatically makes it excellent. You know, because I don't think that's cool. I think that's lame.
Yeah. James, I know, or Jim, I know we've had some conversations too, just about like, you know, making shoes for people that sort of just say things and or just sort of have a public persona. Do you want to talk about, you know, your perspective and sort of, you know, follow up with James' point?
So you know, I think collaborations are like it's like a double-edged sword, really. I mean, it draws obviously attention to a brand, to a shoe, which is great in its own right. But I think especially now, a collaboration really is like, it's like, you know, if you're into sneakers, like having a gray 992, yeah, that's cool, whatever. But having the Joe Fresh Goods 992, like, okay, well, that's where you need to be, which is really not, it's not it. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, yeah, to me, you have a passion for something, like, be it sneakers, be it, you know, anything, cars. You mean, to me, you have a passion for it. It's not just, I kind of, I've said this many times, like in the chat, and I've said this, you know, private message and talking with people. It's this new sort of, almost like sneakers are like this status symbol type of thing. Okay, you know, you had like in the 80s, you know, you had big names and designer names in the 80s. I remember, you know, growing up in the 80s, and everybody was like into like the names. It was a big thing. And obviously it's transpired to different things as time has gone on. But now I think sneakers, like you guys hit on the first episode of the podcast with yours, like now we're getting big, huge designer brands into this culture that kind of like really, like, I think Dave, I thought really hit on it well. They're untouchable to most of the culture. You know, a $2,200 shoe is really not, it's not like the, you know, the young black kid, the young white kid down the street, he can't afford a $2,200 shoe, unless he comes from money. So at times I think collaborations, depending on who's doing the collaboration, it kind of is latching on to something that's hot. There are obviously some incredible collaborations, and I think James hit on a good aspect of it. Right now, I think it's flooded. Like every week, it's a collaboration or two. Especially, and I say this like kind of with like love and a little bit of, but New Balance, that's my shoe. Everyone knows like that's my shoe. I mean, my heart's still in Nike. I'm not gonna lie to you, like, and I'm gonna be really real, but Nike in general is not a good company. They're not that great of a company as far as caring about anything but a dollar, really. That's how I see Nike. But Nike is kind of like my drug. Like I've been on Nike now for 40 years. So it's like one of the hardest habits I think for me to break is getting off of Nike. And like I've said, you know what, I really gotta buy less of Nike. I really can't mess with Nike as much anymore. But then I'm back and they got me in, another 4 releases shown, and it's like, oh god, but they're re-releasing this year. Oh my god, this so they kind of always pull me back, Nike. But New Balance kind of was always the shoe that like New Balance was kind of always the company that didn't care. Like they did their thing and they always had their own, section of the culture that was dedicated. And New Balance heads, a lot of us are pretty dedicated to the company. We've been dedicated to it. But I think even New Balance, as much as I love the company and it makes up a huge portion of what I have, I think they've latched onto that hype, and it kind of is disheartening to me at times because I'm like, it's a good and evil, and I get it. I understand like it's a way to make more money, but I think it's latched on to kind of like the part of sneaker culture right now that I'm kind of like really like distant from. Like again, I get it. We can go back collaborations. Sometimes like James says, they're lazy. Like, the whole like I think the whole Virgil thing like is so watered down right now. Like now he's got, it started with the 10s, and I'm not like the biggest fan of the 10s, but I respected it. He did X amount of shoes and he did it his way. It was respectable, okay. But then it like I always tell everybody, it went from the 10s to the 10,000s. Like now we got a whole other line he's doing with Nike. And I thought that ended like this and that like Virgil and Nike, they were done. But it never was done. And I think from the 10s, it spawned so many other shoes he did that really are trash. Like I gotta be honest and real. Like the shoes are trash. Then James touched on Kanye, and obviously Kanye's collaborations with Nike are pretty iconic. I think we can all agree, whether you like them or not, they're still iconic as shoes and as a collaboration. He went on to Adidas, and like James said, I mean, I don't know how many more various shades of blue and black and gray and tan we're gonna get on a 350. Like, okay, like, oh, it's done. It's over with. Like, just let it be now, Kanye. But at the same time, and I'm not like these days, I'm not the biggest Kanye fan just because Kanye is Kanye. But I was a huge Kanye fan way back, as many people were, and maybe many of us, here, the 4 of us here were. I'm not going to take away that I think Kanye is a genius. It's people don't like to say that sometimes, but he is. He does have a genius mind, but I think it's digressed. Like as he's gone on, it's like he's kind of lost that, and it may be due to his other issues he has. But Kanye is a genius, and he look at where he's at because of what he did with Adidas. I mean, the guy's a billionaire now because he's regurgitating sneakers, sure. Now to touch like on the Witherspoon thing, I have zero respect for the collaboration. Initially, I did like the shoe. It was different. It was corduroy. I'm kind of a sucker for corduroy. It was, a 97 Panana O. I mean, an Air Max 1 sole. It was cool. Like the colors were cool. I did like that shoe. I'm not gonna lie to you. Initially, it actually though wasn't even my top choice when they ran the voting on that shoe. But once it came into fruition and you saw it, and it was nice. It's a nice shoe. Do I still think it's a nice shoe? It's a nice shoe, but I don't really put, like James said, I don't put much weight on Sean for that shoe. Sean is not, I'm not a fan of Sean. Sean actually blocked me on Instagram. So that's kind of like the funny thing is he blocked me. Sean is just a culture vulture. And I mean, I gotta be brutally honest, but Sean is a culture vulture. He sells vintage t-shirts that, I mean, I've been into vintage forever. I don't think I'm anything for it. Sean hop on, Sean was this like little teenage white kid hopped onto something, and he somehow got a collaboration. I really don't know how. Like James said, it's kind of confusing to me how that happened. And then he had a bad falling out with Nike. And I mean, the guy, I have no respect for Sean. I mean, he actually took his own shoe and resold it in his stores. So I, that was like, I think the ultimate, like I was never a big fan of Sean, and there's a kind of a history with Sean. If you've ever been involved with the dunk community, the SB dunk community, there's a little history with Sean. I won't get into all that, but if you know, type of thing. But I mean, to take your own shoe, and they were reselling it in his round one stores. I mean, that's your shoe. Like, you're literally, it's kind of like you're shitting on the community yourself with your own shoe. Like, you should have just sold that shoe. You should have had stacks of that shoe to sell and just straight retail. But now you're overcharging and basically reselling your own collaboration. So, I mean, I think that's kind of where a lot of the things went south with Nike. And then he went on to ASICS. The ASICS shoe is okay. Like, I'm not saying it's horrible. I mean, I think the Adidas shoe, like James said, is the Adidas shoe's trash. Like, let's be real. It's a trash shoe. Like, it's garbage. Like, threads hanging off. Like, it's a complete garbage shoe. There was absolutely nothing brought to the table there, man, on that shoe. It's like, I don't know. It's bad. It's mind-boggling to me. But the ASICS had a little more thought, but not really, because it was a corduroy shoe with pretty much the same colors of the other. I mean, they weren't maybe as muted, but it was kind of the same shoe. So even the thought process and creativity in that shoe wasn't there. I want to be like I think James said, I want to be wowed. I love stories, and I think that's what always drew me to SBs. There's a story. Like, every SB has a story, and that always drew me to those shoes. Anything they did, it's like if you dug, there was a story to it. They didn't just throw a shoe together for just whatever reason. There was something there. And I think that's part of also my love of concepts. And it's not just, obviously, it's what I would say home team, but it's not just that they're home team. It's just concepts. They've always drawn me with their collaborations because there's a story behind their shoes. And sometimes the stories are so crazy that you're just like, wow, like, I can't believe they ran with this, and it works. Like, it worked, and they pretty much just hit home runs concepts on their collaborations. But again, I think collaborations, they're a necessity, but I think, like James said, it's drowning out the culture right now. That it's like, when does it stop? Like, who else is going to get a collaboration? Like donut shops, pizza shops. Like, it's like, like you had certain things like James brought up the bacon. That was like ridiculous. Like, the most unbelievable collaboration. The whole marketing, everything about that was just amazing. Like, amazing. But we don't really get that now. We're just getting collaborations that are just kind of like, okay, well, we threw together a shoe. Here's a couple of colors. That's it. Like, here you go. And people are eating it up. And it's like, if you don't own collaborations, you're kind of not, and I hate to use this term sneakerhead, but you're not a real sneakerhead. Well, no, I mean, it's not the case. Like, so that's kind of where I'm at, Dave, and guys, with the collaboration. I I I feel they're needed, but I think we're flooded. Pretty much like Jordan 1s. Like, if I never see a Jordan 1 for a while, I'll be happy. We're just flooded. We're flooded at this point. So
Plus, there's tiers. There's like different levels of a collaboration.
yeah.
Because you guys talked about the Dior. Like, that's a high end collaboration. It's hard to even fathom the idea. Like, a $10,000 shoe, $8,000 shoe, cool. But off the bat, it's $2,000 shoe. Like, that sits in its own right. But what I don't understand, you have collaborations last year with Nike with Sakai. Like, that was a brilliant collaboration. It was different, and I mean, whether you think Sakai's on the same level as Dior, they fall under the same fashion category, right? Well, you got a shoe like my wife left her shoe out. Like, this is different. I hadn't seen something like when it came out. The Dior one, for as exciting and as interesting as it may be, let's not play on the fact that it's just the name that made it interesting. They put their mesh lining on the side that they do on every one of their shoes, and they made a Jordan 1 with some light colorways, with some nice premium leather. Great. That's exciting. For who, though?
For who, James? Yeah.
For who? For me? That's,
Yeah.
I mean, I could, it's a nice shoe, but I'm rocking. If you're wearing that shoe, it's because you're trying to flex that you got money, or that you've got. It doesn't make you more fashionable because I have.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head, James. There, like, you're not wearing that shoe for any other reason but to flex.
And
there's no other reason. Like,
it's unattainable. Like, I have the luxury of having enough money to buy that shoe if I want it. But how do I get it? I don't go shopping at Dior every day, or Dior doesn't come to my house every day for me to have that relationship with somebody at Dior that's going to let me have that shoe. That shoe was not made for us. That shoe was made for influencers, celebrities, and people who it was for Jordan Brand and Dior to both say, look what we did. We're infiltrating another culture. But it had nothing to do with me.
Really, that shoe, and I think Dave brought that up. Like, that shoe's not made for us. It's made for, a high-end client with money just to blow, to be like, well, I'm wearing a Jordan 1. Like, I would never wear a Jordan 1 otherwise. But it's a Dior, so I'm gonna wear a Jordan 1. Like, they're not buying black toes, they're not buying mochas. They're, it's a Jordan 1 Dior. Okay, like,
the Sakai is an interesting comparison because they created a whole new shoe and a whole new look, and it's so weird that it doesn't appeal to everyone. But I love it. I think it's like, it's there's one or two Nikes a year that catch my eye, and that was without a doubt one of my favorites in the past few years. And it's totally different.
Like, for example, when I said tiers, like you have your luxury brands and your Sakai's that was done differently, and it was done interestingly enough that this merits some attention. I understand why. Whether was it successful? Yes, it turned out to be, but it wasn't for everybody. But it was different. And then you've got your street, your more attainable collaborations that were interesting, like this shoe, right? This is the second variation of it. This is an Atmos collaboration. The first one blew my mind in 2006. I couldn't, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, these were incredible. When they came back out, like, this is different. You don't see this everywhere.
There's another level too I'll touch on, if it is like, there's like a ground level collaborative, like there's certain brands that have collaborated with fans on pairs. Deodora did it with the mix. It's like a mismatched pair, and they collabed with a Facebook group and got people's input, and a few people kind of worked on that shoe. Kangaroos did it, and Sneap is a small brand from Spain, and they've done a few sort of collabs with just like Facebook and a guy on Instagram. Like, I love this. I like seeing this ground level stuff. I don't think Nike would really go there necessarily. Maybe the Sean Wotherspoon is kind of the closest thing to that, because they did kind of do a contest and whatnot. But
yeah, no, I think you're right, Josh. Like, I don't think we'd ever see, especially I think at this point, like, I think we're far beyond like ever seeing some sort of fan, culture rooted shoe from Nike. Like, I think we're so beyond.
Yeah, and most of those micro collabs or whatever they are, there's only like 200 or 300 pairs, and they know that they'll sell them. They're for the fans. Sometimes they do like a pre-registering, pre-order, so they're only going to make 500 or less of something like that. That's so specific. Nike wants to collaborate with someone who's it'll boost their name. It'll boost, everyone's benefiting from it.
So let me ask you guys, like, I know when Josh and I talked about this topic, we kind of started with the whole Kanye, we know what Kanye said, we know what Kanye's done in recent years, and how controversial a lot of the things he said have been, as well as Sean Wotherspoon. There are a lot of racist accusations against him when he had first started round two and was selling things with things that look like Confederate flags on them. I know for me personally, James, like you said, back before College Dropout, I was a huge Kanye fan. I remember, my mother died in 2002, and I remember when College Dropout came out, and that album literally gave me life, because I knew who Kanye was, and I had listened to so much of his stuff and heard so much of his production on everything. And it was like he had been given a shot, and I felt like I needed a new shot at life too. And that album gave me that. And then it was like a spiral downhill, not from there, but you know, we got to like the 2010s post Nike, and who he was then and who he is now are very different, or at least, you know, publicly very different. And so yes, Nike Kanye, iconic. But when I look at like the 350 and then I connect it, like people say this all the time and I hear it all the time, like, oh, I'm not, you know, I can separate his public statements and the things he says on Twitter and the things he does from his art and from his sneakers. And I'm like, I can't. Like,
No, Dave, if
I buy a 350, what is he doing with that money? Like, where's that money going? And so for me, I always had this question of like, who's behind it, right? Like, so yeah, the name is cool. Like Sakai is dope. The Dior collaboration was cool. It was cool. It wasn't for me though, because I have no connection to Dior. Like I don't mess with them. I don't fuck with them on the regular, you know. They're not fucking with me. They're not sending me coupons and like hitting me up to buy stuff, right? So like coupons. I always had this question of like I always had this question of like, all right, like when someone does a collaboration, is it connecting with me on some level that I haven't that I already have? Like, you know, for Kanye, yes, Kanye and I have a history. I connect with him, but who he is now, I don't connect with, and I don't want to represent that, right?
Yeah, I agree. They fully like.
I also want to be told stories, like you said, Jem. Like I want someone to say, like, you know, Saucony does, you know, they did the beignet, you know, with sneaker politics, and so. I have never really had a beignet. I think I've had them when I was really, really young. I've been to Louisiana like twice. And so that story was something that was like cool to me. It taught me something. It gave me something. It didn't feel alienating. And so I'm curious what are the things that like a collaboration for you really like touch you, really bring you in? Like, is it just the product, or is it the story, or is it the persona behind it?
Sure, I agree with that, Dave. Again, to me, like, give me a story first and foremost before I look at like, if you give me two shoes and, you know, here's a collaboration from X and here's a collaboration from X, but if you tell me now, well, here's a story behind this shoe, like automatically it's just kind of like this automatic thing with me. Like I'm gonna gravitate, like, okay, like you said, like it draws me, and I may not know anything about it, like, and I may not be you know the background of anything to do with that story previously, but I'm like, okay, wait a second, I'm gonna find out now, like, and kind of dig into it. And now you give me a shoe, and I this is not even to be an ass or whatever, but we'll take, for instance, the Packer 992. Beautiful shoe, right? It's a nice shoe. I like the shoe a lot. I like the colors, but it was lazy. Like it was just a lazy shoe that kind of New Balance went to Packer and said, all right, here's, you know, our palette from NB1. You know, we'll give you, they obviously with those collaborations on that level, they always kind of toss them an extra little something that you can't create exactly on the NB1 program. But as nice as the shoe is, and I love the colorway and everything, there's no story behind that shoe. It's just like NB, you know, went to Packer and said, here you go, make us a shoe. There's a couple of little things you can choose extra that, you know, NB1 doesn't have, and they made a nice shoe. But now I know that if Concepts puts out a 992, which I'm praying to God, like it does happen, I can tell you guys that there was a 992 on the board, and COVID happened. So I'm hoping that 992 is still, and I'm, you know, the information I've heard, we'll see something from them. Believe me. I know that there's a few stuff on the drawing board and some actual samples of some stuff out there. But I know if Concepts gives us a 992, there's more than likely they have a story on that shoe. Yeah. You know, like, and like some of the stories are like crazy, like the S route, for instance, like crazy. Like the story, like you dig into it and it's about this crazy Broadway play that was funded by the you know, the trade and everything with Babe Ruth. But like, what did you know about that prior? Like, I'll admit, like, I'm from Boston. Like, no, I didn't know that story, but I dug into it and I'm like, damn, like, and like that's the thing, like Dion and Concepts, like they dig into like these weird little intricate like stories and bring it to life on a shoe, and you're like, God damn, like you this is out of left park. Versus like some companies just again they'll throw a lazy collab at you. I don't really know if they should be labeled collabs. They're very lazy, like.
Yeah.
And
You
again, like James brought up, it's like one every week, so it's really lost. Like it's lost kind of its like allure, and it's like, oh wow, like because you're like, all right, well, Pata has one this week, and well, next week it's gonna be whatever Paperboy is coming up, right? And like the new, for instance, I'll bring that new Paperboy 992 coming. Is it a nice shoe? Yeah, it's a really nice shoe. It's a beautiful looking shoe, but honestly, like I don't know if you guys agree, but man, it's like to me the Nimbus Cloud with some yellow. Like, you know what I mean? There's nothing like I think like James said, I want to be like I want my like socks kind of like knocked off, like damn, wow. And like recently I would say like the Tudurkin, and again, not because it's Concepts, but the Tudurkin like blew my mind. I'm like, wow, like this is off the wall. Like to come up with this concept, execute it the way it was executed, give us this packaging, give us this. It was a whole other realm. Like I was like, man, again, like they did it again. But I have like this Paperboy. Like I said, it's a nice shoe. But again, to me, it's a Nimbus Cloud. You threw a little bit of yellow on. I respect, you know, but I'm not like, wow, like I have to have this shoe. And again, I probably won't get it. It's a French, you know, France only type release, but it's very lazy, like a lazy. I need something, and I think James mentioned it, and James being in it, James seems to be in it as long as I have. Like, you know, we've been around for a long time. Like, you kind of expect certain levels now. Like, I expect, like, you know, back when collaborations first started, okay, well, it's kind of like we're just experimenting, but all right, we're past the experimentation level with collabs. Like now, you got to bring out like your guns, your big guns. When you're giving me a collab, bring out your big guns. And so many times now we're not like they're just lazy, and we're throwing a name on it and it's getting hyped, which is crazy, but just because of the name. Like if you threw so many of these collabs out as GRs, they're sitting. That Sean Witherspoon, I mean, I don't know, I really haven't got into too much of like where the demand or resell or whatever is on the Adidas, but if that shoe was a GR, they'd be at Foot Action right now for $15. Like,
and that's the major thing, like what you're saying about collaborations. For me, I want to geek out, right? So if I see you on the street and you have a pair of S-Works on your feet, I know you know that we know that there's more to it, right?
yes.
Like I want the casual person who sees me when I have on the beignets, they're like, oh, those are nice. Well, funny you should say that, because let me tell you a story about why this shoe is so interesting, or why is it so cool. Like I don't want it to be like, oh, the black and white Air Max 1s, that's cool. Like I love to talk about sneakers. I'm a sneaker enthusiast. I want to tell you every little thing I know about it. And the more you give me to talk about, the more exciting and willing to participate I will be. Like you know, it could be as simple as a marketing campaign. The Ray Guns, for example, all that was they took a make-believe basketball team and made some commercials about the Roswell basketball team. You know what I'm saying? But I have something to tell you, and it was interesting and different. You know, you've got when I talk about the lobsters, they're like, "Oh, you got the purple lobsters. That's cool." I'm like, "Yeah," and I also have the red and the green. You know what I'm saying? I wish I had the yellow.
You and me both.
The S-Works is the perfect. It's the perfect collaboration, and I'll tell you, maybe because it's the best looking shoe of all times. That I mean, it's not that. The shoe is nice. I love the colors, and it's interesting, and it pops, right? But then the box, it's the music from it. You know what I mean? And then it's this, but it's not just the color. It's also the same color scheme that they used in the play, and that play got you Babe Ruth, and Babe Ruth, da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like, look, there's just You know what I'm saying? And it might not appeal to everybody, the shoe, but the story is interesting enough to talk about, or would lead one way. Well, did you know that Nanette did this, that, and this, and that they sold Babe Ruth for $200, and that guy, became,
and then it bombed, and then the whole Broadway thing bombed, James. Yeah.
like there's just, that's a collaboration. If you're like, hey, look at my collab, it's the Dior one. And if all we're talking about is how hard it was to get,
with the Dior one, it's just like like you said, look at it's a rich person's shoe. It's like I have no connection to that.
I love collaborations that come from people who maybe aren't supposed to be giving them to me, right? And I say this, and I don't mean it in a way to be rude or anything, but like I'll go back to Sakai and like females making men's shoes. I think that is a resource that we need to tell. Girls look good and they dress good and they know how to do stuff. So the Lady May 6 is probably the best 6 for me ever made. I don't give a goddamn what anybody has to say about that. The color's cool. It pops, it screams, it's subtle, it's soft, it's beautiful. I love it. It's dope. And that's, if you, I'll probably get hate on it because of the infrareds, etc. This, that, and this. That's a perfectly done shoe. Give her, but go further than that. Let's go into it. The Cactus Plant Flea Market Air Max, or I'm sorry, Vapor Max. Thank you. That was a shoe that was different. And still the same, and you can still see where they're limited. Like, and I don't mean limited by like a product amount. I'm saying like, how much further they were probably willing to go, where they weren't allowed to go further than that. The Sakai, same thing. Give me what you're seeing, and let's get deeper than that. Forget the Jordan box. Give me the Lady Makes Jordan collaboration box. Give me the same thing that you did with Union collaboration. That was fire, whether you like the shoe or not. At least it was a thought process. Something as simple as stitching the tongue had the entire internet blowing up, talking about it. That is a marketing scheme like no other in a collaboration that I want. There's a whole gang of people that are like, I'm, unstitched tongue, or I'm team stitched tongue. You know what I mean? Like, it's a whole perspective that people always miss when it comes to collaborations. I want to know how the two mix together and how they're going, what they're trying to tell me. And I expect a lot more. And that's why I get fed up with collaborations. And I say that while chasing down shoes, but I want people who have something to say to give me the shoe, right? So I Packard and Pata getting another collab, that's great and all, but that's kind of stale to me. Like, how about you give me I loved when Futura was doing collaborations. He's an artist. He had a point of view. Hebrew Brantley, he's got ideas. Nike, what are you doing? Go get that man and put him and have him put his art on the shoe.
Do you remember when Nike just 2-3 years ago they did the Latin heritage line with they did the Air Max ones. They did like, that was to me like an absolutely mind-blowing amazing line, the Air Max one. And for the most part they were slept on initially, like the Jordan 1, obviously, like any Jordan 1, it's shot up like crazy, but initially, James, that shoe was just slept on, like, and the design, that whole, from the toe box up to the tongue, the design, everything was gorgeous. The Air Max 1 that was done in that line was absolutely, like, it's literally one of my favorite Air Max 1 releases in, a while. Like, that shoe is gorgeous, but very slept on. Like, but that's like I want that stuff. Like, I don't really care that like Pack is getting another 992, that they just threw some colors. There's no backstory to it. It's like, okay, well, all right. It's lazy. It's just like you said, I want, like, if I'm chasing a collaboration down, and the way that it's funny, before this all started, we were talking about the Pata, the way we have to chase down shoes now. Like, if I'm chasing a shoe down, God, that shoe better be damn worth it. Like, if I'm having to, like, no trivia questions and give you my blood sample into a raffle to maybe win, you better freaking blow my mind and rock my world.
Absolutely.
I think a special box, a couple extras, a pair of socks, the more. My shoe of the year last year is a shoe that probably, like, not a lot of people have even heard of. It's a Kangaroos release with What's on My Feet Today and a store called The Sixth Floor. And the story, the colorway already, and the shoe is beautiful, the colors and whatnot. But then they went the next level. They got an artist to do kind of like these themes around the whole concept, which is there are no kangaroos in Austria. it's so layered, and it comes with socks that match. And that to me, when I see a collaboration released, I think even if I'm like kind of on the fence, probably that sort of thing can tip me to want to buy it. I think this was a release, if it just came out without that stuff, and there are a lot of pairs where I'm like, I don't care what the story is, it's a good enough shoe, I want it.
Right.
But that story, that backstory, whatever it is, can really push it that next level and make it, you know, that one of those pair you really want. Can I jump into the next sort of like phase of what we wanted to touch on, or should we just keep rolling? What do you think, Dave?
Absolutely. No, let's get into something else.
There's one collab that came out a few years back. It's called Castellers, came out with Deodora. And it's funny because the story around it is actually phenomenal. It's about this contest in, I think, Spain or Italy. You can look it up, but anyway, it's like people climbing each other. It's this whole beautiful part of their culture, and they created a shoe around it. Dave has a pair. Yeah, this shoe here.
I still envy Dave for having that shoe.
Yeah, same here. Same here. Dave, I don't know, Dave, maybe you know a bit more about the story, but then this store had a second collaboration, and I think because this pair became, you know, one of the most people who are Deodora fans, it's sort of the pinnacle as far as design. And it's the Deodora Grail. It's $1,000 shoe now. It's, you know, it's one of those pairs that blew up. And the second release is called Corafox. And I can't remember exactly what the theme is. It might have been related to the Castellers in that it's a different team that would participate.
So the Castellers they're basically like human towers, and so in Spain they get together to create these human towers and like sort of stand on each other's shoulders and see who can sort of create the tallest standing tower of people, you know, people standing on top of each other. And so that was the Casteller theme. You know, limited editions is the shop. They're in Spain. They have, you know, obviously deep ties to you know, themes within Spain. And then similarly, when they released the Corafox, however you pronounce it, that was themed around the Catalan Revolution, or supposed revolution, which is, you know, sort of controversial, but also like really cool, or is the Catalan festival. So basically it's like fireworks and basically a festival around fire. And so they light things on fire or something like that.
Like
to
the
that
Catalina
effect.
wine mixer?
Huh?
I think it's got a lot of fireworks and
You said the
I think,
Catalina wine mixer?
I think it's like Dave, that festival's like something to do with like a lot of fireworks and like people dress up as Satan and they it's a big thing. It's a really big thing. But
it's a Spanish festival as well. So it has obviously ties back to the limited edition shop.
Yep.
And like Josh was saying, this was a highly anticipated release, the second release, because Castellers was a huge deal. I remember that's one of the, I think that's the most I've ever spent on a shoe in resale. Like I try not to buy resale, but I paid, you know, like $550 for this pair, which it seems like nothing now, but it's like it was a huge deal back then in 2016. So when their follow-up came out, you know, the shop was supposed to do this special release where, you know, real Deodora fans got access to the shoe. And so, you know, they had this whole online campaign. I think Josh, you were a part of it. I remember being like, hey, I'm going to take pictures of all my Deodoras. And I was really big into Deodora at the time.
I don't think I have enough pairs to do something like that. Just Deodora alone.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I had like 27, 28 pairs of Deodora.
Which is good for a Deodora, you know?
Yeah, I was deep in the game. And then they didn't release the shoe. And so what happened was the store owner sort of started I don't want to say backdooring pairs, but basically what he did was if you wanted a pair, you had to buy like 3 other things from the store, and then he would give you access to buy the pair.
Yes, Dave.
So like
You're
it turned
absolutely
into
right.
this
Yeah.
whole thing where
He
you couldn't buy
basically
them.
kind of, I think he knew the hype of the Castellar, right? Castellars, and he
Exactly.
he
Yeah.
like kind of ate off that, and he made you basically buy just GRs that was sitting in his store that he couldn't sell, and he made you buy X
Yeah.
amount of these, basically what I always call them like rats. Like if they're not moving, they're rats. Like so he's basically making you buy these rats that just he couldn't move, and you'd have to buy like 2 or 3 pairs of these, and then I as far as I can remember, Dave, I want to even say that you won't even guarantee necessarily to get a pair. Like if you bought 2 or 3 of these shit shoes that nobody wanted, you might get an email now that says, okay, well, you can buy this Corfox. And it was like I don't know, to me it was mind-boggling, like that it was allowed.
Other things I heard were that he sold them above what retail already, like to these clients.
He did, Josh.
So
This is what I've heard. This is alleged. Also, he lost his like Nike Tier 0 account. They kicked him off because probably some shady dealings.
Yeah.
So he has a pretty bad rap, even in the Deodora community. This pair, the Corfox, still sells for, I don't know if you can see a pair for sale, $1,200. As far as I know, there was no official release date, and then there's still pairs sitting in his store. Like to this day, it was supposed to release 2 or 3 years ago.
That's what I've heard, I think, Josh, as well. Like I heard that he sold them for higher than MSRP. I mean, again, I don't know. I was never offered a shoe. This is just obviously what you hear from people who were offered a shoe or know a little more. But yeah, I heard that he sold them for higher. Again, true or not, I don't know. I never had a chance at the shoe. But you're right. I heard that there's still pairs. Like he still has pairs, whether that's like some tall tale, whatever. But is it believable? Sure, it's definitely believable. Like, but I think he shot himself in the foot because, like you said, he lost a lot. There was a lot lost from what happened. He lost a Nike Tier 0. I mean, yeah.
I think, I haven't heard whether or not Deodora has canned any further collabs. I think the interesting question about that release is those 2 pairs are really good. They're beautiful pairs. The story is phenomenal. They're 2 of the most expensive Deodoras out there, and not too many Deodoras sell for, more than $200-$300 probably at resale. It's not a huge resale market on Deodora. There's a handful of pairs that are kind of hard to get. But at what point does a brand, this bad behavior, what point does a brand drop their collaborator and say no more collabs? And there's a whole discussion about it on Facebook around this specific collaborator. The pairs are beautiful. Wouldn't we love to see more from them? Like they do a great job on this model, and
no, absolutely.
At some level, and Kanye West is a good tie-in here too, because his behavior is so outrageous a few years ago, and things he was saying so offensive. I personally, if I was a fan of his shoes, if I was buying them regularly, whatever, they're basically like GRs. I don't even know if it really qualifies as a collab anymore, kind of like Jordan Brand. But I would have had no problem from that point just saying, you know what, see you later, I won't buy anymore. That's how I felt. But I wasn't even already a huge Yeezy fan. I wasn't buying Yeezys to begin with, so it's easy for me to say that.
But
I think, like Dave said earlier, like some of the stuff he said and done, I can't fuck with Kanye now. Like,
right.
And I'll go back and I'll listen to old Kanye, and like the magic comes back. You're like, God damn, like this guy was amazing. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Do I still turn on some old Kanye? Yeah. Like I go back and I'm like, God damn, man. Like, and it sounds so cliche, but you do say like, God, I want the old Kanye back. But I can't. First of all, in all the years I've been collecting all the shoes I've had, I've never owned one single Yeezy. I've never bought a Yeezy ever. Like at the height of it, like it just never. They never did anything to me. They were like, like the first 350s, I'm sorry, they look like Skechers now. Like everybody like still covets turtle doves. Oh God, I mean turtle doves look like I could go buy them in, you know, anywhere like a Skechers shoe. Like I'm sorry, it's the V2 got a little better and there was some nice colorways, but it wasn't my shoe. Like I was always like, I'm not paying $220 for a fucking niche shoe. Like it's garbage. Like it's not like I'm spending $220. I'm getting beautiful suede from New Balance, or I'm just not the I'd say the one shoe that I really, really did like from Kanye was the Wave Runner. I thought that was a gorgeous shoe. The silhouette was, you didn't like it, James? See, I liked it.
Absolutely.
I liked it. I liked it. But did I buy it? No. And then the price tag was $300. And I'm just like, where in God's name are they coming up with $300 for this shoe? Now they just released that, like, looks like a sun colored one.
Oof,
all of a sudden now it's down to $240. So I think like somebody at, like Adidas was like, shit, man, like we've been milking people for a long time. Like it, but I did like the original Wave Runner, but I never copped. And I just now Kanye's, he said so much shit that I'm like, no, I can't fuck with Kanye. I can't support somebody that said the shit he just like, I'm, you know, if somebody who I've supported forever said some shit like that, and I'm done. Like, you know, I'm kind of too old in my age now to be like, let me turn the blind eye. No, hell no. Like, because to me at times, like, you're the company you keep, and if if you support this kind of shit, well,
I think it's probably important to note too that there was, like Dave shared some articles, there was certain people who were working with Nike because of their behavior. You know, some of it was pretty atrocious or criminal. Nike, you know, no reserves in dropping them. And I don't know why Nike dropped Kanye. It's funny, we're talking about Kanye, we're talking about Sean Wotherspoon. They both got dropped by Nike. I don't even know really how. I don't know why Sean got dropped, but, you know, Nike seems as unethical as maybe they've been, or, you know, they're as much as they're a hype machine, or, you know, just all about making money and profit. And maybe this is a you know, it's a PR move that helps them continue to make money and profit. It does seem like the ethically good choice to drop these people when their behavior has been unacceptable.
I mean,
absolutely. I think a lot of. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just gonna say that they dropped Manny Pacquiao because he made those anti, you know, LGBTQ statement. Yep. They dropped him like that, you know. And on the flip side, Nike was the brand that picked up Colin Kaepernick, right, and signed him and kept him on and gave him a shoe.
And supported him, yeah.
And gave him, like, you know, the option to do some stuff with them. So, you know, I know we always like to, you know, Nike's on top, so they're the easiest to sort of shit on, but like ultimately, you know, their brand, they've protected their brand from, you know, having to deal with like some of the name issues, you know. And for me, like Adidas, I think I bought one Adidas in the past like 2 years, and it's been very hard for me to really look at them and to really buy things, because I kind of feel like there's been too much controversy that they haven't been willing to just say, nah, we're not going to fuck with that, or nah, we're not going to deal with that. Like, absolutely. Like they were willing to stick by Kanye because it felt like, oh, well, he's making us money. And so rather than check him on his statements and his public persona, we're gonna ride with the check.
Well,
and I even remember Wex.
This is also the same company. Adidas is the same company who wouldn't shut down their stores when COVID first kicked off because they would still make money. So it doesn't matter what line of that you stand on, like profits over people. That's I can't stand for that. But back to, I mean, it's to the beginning. Brands behaving badly, stores behaving, and it starts at the root of it. I mean, there are plenty of stores out there that, fuck, most of them do, you know, that they have shady behavior and they have tier 0 accounts and they have all these things. But the reason why they get until they get checked, or they stop making money, or they stop providing the main shoe brand with what they're asking for. For example, Nike wants you to deliver more than just selling the shoes. They want you to have a social media, a major social media following. They want you to essentially promote their brand for them without So as long as you're still doing that to a high level, they overlook a lot of these people who
No,
do bad stuff. I'm
definitely.
not,
Oh, definitely,
and,
James,
and
yeah.
that, and so
And I don't
until
think
those
people
stores start
realize,
to either
but
blatantly do it, like
having a tier 0 account, I don't really know. James, you know a little bit about it, but I think your average like sneakerhead and don't really realize having a tier 0 account with Nike it's a pretty special thing. Is
oh,
if
it's a
you're a
pristine.
boutique. And I
Yeah.
mean, you have to really. There's standards. Nike set standards, and even after so much time, you have to update the look of your store. There's got to
Absolutely.
be. They have a lot of control. They have when you're a tier 0 account, Nike has a big hand in your business, which is like you'd be like, well, it's my business. Well, no, because if you want to have that tier 0 status and you want to get everything that's absolute top and hot, you got to play by Nike's rules.
Absolutely.
And like James said, like there's times where I think I won't say who, but there's certain places that have gotten away with some shit who are tier 0, and
Oh, a lot of them.
they should have been checked, James, a long time ago, but I think they're still driving enough obviously money into Nike's pocket. But there's one spot in particular I can tell you that they've done a lot of shit, James, and they should have been checked a while ago. And there was talk that they were gonna maybe lose their tier 0, but it never happened. It's kind of Nike at times does turn a blind eye, but like Dave said, I think for the most part they do. They've done a pretty good job of, I think, getting rid of the bad, like pretty quick.
Sure.
Like,
Is it a money issue for Nike, or is it do they really care? It's always that balance. I think we all like. I think we the three of us can agree. Is it that balance of money? But I gotta hope that they're doing it for the good.
It's unfortunate, and I think getting tier 0 not only does it give you all the product and all the stuff you have to give back towards Nike, what they demand, it also gives the brand or that shop itself some leeway to do whatever they want, because tier 0 is so highly coveted. The people who get them are obviously making Nike or whoever those brands may be a significant amount of money that they're rewarding them with this. So they're also a bit of a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, that's a good. I like
Maybe
that.
Don't do that, but we're not going to strip you of it, right?
I like that. I like that.
I mean?
That term, get out of jail. It's like it really is like a get out of jail free card.
Because the tier 1 stores won't get away with it. Tier 1 stores will get reamed because you can't. They're not.
I have a local chain, James, right now that's losing their Nike account. Like,
you know what I'm saying?
And not for no reason that they did anything shady. Just Nike with their Nike's whole new
e-commerce
kind of like rebranding themselves and reformatting things for their own. They're realizing they can make that much more cutting the middle guy out.
Right.
So this change
it's easier to cut the T1 out than it is to kill the T0, because the T0s have a major presence. While James's sneaker shop down the street, who's had a tier 1 account forever, who sells every Air Max 1 and Air Jordan that comes through that isn't super hyped. Well, maybe they didn't quite sell enough this month. Let's get rid of them, and let's not get rid of super flashy store down the street who's got all the off-whites, all the stuff they sell out, everything. They make product and they backdoor some shit, but let's not get rid of them because their profile is a lot higher than the loyal tier 1 store. That it's easy to just knock them out of the way. But we'll keep these guys because they provide so much more to the brand, even though it's in the public eye. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when it goes to like the people, like Kanye is hard for me because polo bape wearing all the way to the leather pants, like that was dude. You know what I mean? That was great. I loved Kanye back then. That was
James. What's the reason really for ones being where they are?
And you know what I'm saying?
Let's be honest. Like, let's be Kanye, man. Like Kanye
was.
He started rocking the breads, and
absolutely, he's a very influential person, and still is. And unfortunately, sometimes his decision making right now.
I found getting into like collaborations. It's kind of funny, like drifting a little from sneakers, but like we haven't heard a thing about the Gap. Like there was the big news of him in the Gap.
That's true.
Like it's cricket.
Well, they're probably letting things simmer down because of his antics.
Because of that presidential run.
Kanye and me, I couldn't get with Kanye. When Kanye left Nike, it was hard for me to follow. and I didn't at first. The 750, I appreciate that shoe. I actually would care for him to do. I would love to see more of those come out because at least those were an interesting shoe. The 350s when they first came out, cool. I appreciated him as it went along. But after he did 3 colorways or 4, I'm sorry, after the Moon Rocks, the Oxford, the Pirates, and the colorways, I thought it was gonna stick to that limited element of it. But then it became the mass-produced product that we've seen now. But even then, I still expected, for as much as Kanye toots his own horn about being a genius and seeing sounds in mute or visually seeing sounds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, we're gonna get something good. When the V2 dropped, I was like, okay, fine. And then the V2 never stopped dropping. And I hate the argument when people are like, well, Nike drops the Air Max 1 all the time. Yeah, but the Air Max 1 is from 1986 and it's proven its chops. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Like this shoe, it wasn't like they didn't make another Air Max every single year leading up to it, whether it was a failure or not.
How many, different Air Max do we have? Air Max 1, 90, 97, with like Adidas and Kanye have been stuck on V2 for how many years, James? 3 years?
3
years, like 3 years.
And then we got the 700, and that shoe, I mean, wow, that shoe is so epically terrible. It's heavy, it's hot. I lost the bet and was forced to wear them. You know what I'm saying? And then they finally dropped. You remember that? And they dropped the V3. That was the first time, bro. That was tough. Not so much. I haven't worn the same shoes in like straight every day for a week since dead ass probably middle school, maybe elementary school, where it was the same shoe, right? So it was strange for me. But the more I wore, the more I did not care for the shoe. It was fat and bulky. It reminded me of a big Osiris, but it had some dad shoe elements of it. The colors were fine, but I felt like it was stealing thunder away from New Balance and created as this mecca for this new mega shoe. I'm like, bro, they've been doing this shit. This isn't new. Yeah. This isn't exciting. This is just another fat shoe, and Kanye became a dad.
Yeah.
But I digress. When it comes to staying the course with him, a lot of people want to ride or die because he makes money for them, and that's why. If it was me and I had a collaboration with Adidas and I'm a nobody and I'm just another guy down the street and I said something stupid, bye. You know what I'm saying? Adios. That I'd be kicked to the curb. But Kanye's made them, billions and billions of dollars. So again, the get out of jail free cards or the morality card is a little loose.
It's just crazy because I thought that some of the last shit that he had said when he really lost it, it was like before the holidays, and he kind of went that whole tirade, and he's like, he kind of tore like the Adidas board and everybody apart. Like I thought at that point, James, I really thought like, all right, it's over. Like they got to be sitting somewhere in an office and being like, listen, this guy he's too much of a liability now. But no, he calmed down and everything. And no, it just.
Well, the checks kept clearing. You know what I'm saying? The checks kept clearing. The money kept coming. They were like, well, fuck it. If nobody's going to get mad, we'll just go ahead and let him go ahead.
But see, here.
Maybe pat on the wrist, Kanye. Don't say that on Twitter. You know what I'm saying?
So here's my thing, right? And like, I think you could get some leeway with saying some crazy stuff and being wild and like whatever. You fly off the handle every once in a while. Because I think there are a few people that do it.
Sure.
But not coming back and saying, I didn't mean this. I apologize. I went too far. I didn't mean it in this way. Having some sort of publicist to sort of like rein things in and say, well, he didn't mean this. He meant this. Or I wasn't trying to say this. I was trying to say that. Right. So like, I need some sort of remorse. I need some sort of, damn, I said too much. I went too far. I need some sort of self-awareness to say, what I said or what I did hurt some people, and maybe I shouldn't have said that, or maybe what I thought wasn't accurate, or what I thought was really, or what I said was hurtful.
Well, Dave, you don't know, Sweat. You don't know, Sweat.
Never.
I think that was like his really breakdown.
When he got challenged on TMZ, like that was the first time I'd ever seen anybody challenge to a point where I think for a second he saw it and he was like, "Oh, okay, maybe I did spout off more than I spouted off stuff and somebody called me on it."
Called him out.
And he seemed like a human again for a
Yeah.
minute. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not some
I
robotic.
you know, the whole Sway interview and that whole, you know, meltdown with Sway. I always like I've always respected Sway, and then like when he lost his shit on Sway, and I was like, I don't know, I maybe Sway, James and Dave, maybe Sway's a better person than me, but I would have put his ass in check. And Sway, you know, kind of checked him a little bit, but not like the way that to me, I would have been like, and he's just like, you know, you don't know Sway, and I'm like, whoa, like, and Sway was like, calm down, Kanye. But me, I'd have just been like, get your ass out of my studio, like, you know, you're off your rocker, like.
I want to bring it full circle because I gotta go pick up my daughter too.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's worthwhile to talk about and to realize that, like, you know, the collaboration space has sort of, I don't want to say devolved, but in some ways it has, right? Where it's more about like, hey, the cachet of this person or this brand or this boutique, as opposed to, you know, saying, hey, you have a story, you have an idea, you have some sort of element that you want to bring to the table that no one has brought before, and no one else is going to bring. Like Jerry Lorenzo, I think James, you said that before. Jim, you talked about like concepts, how they're going to do a story, you know, and concepts isn't like yes, we know Dion, we know, you know, all the people at the store, but ultimately concepts, when you think of concepts, you think of that storytelling, you think of that idea and that depth of you know of idea that other stores aren't going to bring, right? And
Yeah,
so
right.
and so that is what they're bringing to the table, and that is what's valuable, I think, about collaborations that we need to see more of. We need to see more of that. We need to see more Jerry Lorenzo, where he's doing something, you know, insane that's completely out of the box. We need to, you know, open it up and let brands like Sakai come in, who don't necessarily have name recognition, but they operate on this high tier, and they're gonna really, 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 really push the envelope. I don't need Dior want to give me a new colorway and charge me 4 figures.
And I mean, in essence, Dave, and I think maybe James and you both might agree, but was it a new colorway? No, it was gray. Was it a nice gray?
It was
Yeah.
Dior Gray.
Yeah, it was Deodora Grail.
It's the Dior gray, right? I mean, but listen, not for nothing, but if someone says to me, you know, do you want the Dior one or do you want a shadow one? It's hands down, I'm taking the shadow ones every time. Like the Dior means nothing to me. It's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't
mean, if
care.
somebody
It's not
says,
me.
"Do
I'm
you
not
want
in
the
that
Dior ones?"
lifestyle. Like, give me my shadow ones. That's my shit. Like, that's what I know.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
take the Dior ones, but I would wear the shadows more than I would wear the Dior ones.
Right. And that's the thing. Like I have shadows. I have every time they've dropped. I don't have Dior ones. Now, if you're gonna give them to me, well, let's talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about it. If you're gonna sell Dior one collaborations at $150, so we can have the Jordan and the Dior at that price, I'm down with that. Hell,
Would
can
we
get
buy
them
them,
for
James? Yeah,
$5,
absolutely. Yeah,
right?
I
If
buy
you-
them. I mean, if they're $170, even if they said, okay, well, listen, it's a premium,
Right.
but not a 2,000, and they said to me, well, we'll give you the Dior ones for $250. All right,
Yeah.
I'll go down
I would
for-
understand. I would understand a $500 price tag on them. I would understand that. I get that. That's not out of the question. But you start the bar at, not only is it over $2,000, it's unattainable. That shit was meant to be courtside on some celebrity's foot to gas us up. That wasn't meant to be on my foot to go to work in ever. You know what I'm saying? Or it was meant for the guy that I'm filming, not for the dude producing it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's the difference between it.
And I think, like James said, like I think, like, we'll just say I was walking down Newbury Street in Boston, and somebody walks by me with a pair of Dior ones on. All right, I mean, am I gonna like, you know, notice it? Surely, I'm a sneakerhead. Like, that's first thing I look at is people's feet. Like, that's just a fact. Like, I look at people's feet. Am I gonna notice it? Sure. Am I gonna necessarily be like, you know, go up to the dude and be like, oh, I respect you? Nah, whatever. I just know the dude's got money. But now, like James said, if someone walks down the street with a pair of, I don't know, New Balance or Saucony collabs, that most of Newbury Street isn't rocking, and they're rocking Yeezys or they're rocking ones, I'm gonna actually, and I've done this, I'll go up to somebody and be like, that, I respect, that's a dope shit, man. Like, I've done it. Like, I just like to, people to know, like, listen, I know what you have on your foot. Like,
Right.
you know, I'm not oblivious to, like, you got something to me very special. Like, whether it's a $200 resale shoe or whatever. But I'm gonna go up to you and I'm gonna give you those props, James. So
You know, and I want to see collabs from the unexpected. I want to see the resale shop who's been in the game for 10 years to give us their perspective on it. The guys who like Riff LA. I want Riff to get. I want Ed Mattel, Jeff and Ed, the owners of it, to collaborate and put together something because they've seen everything come through. Right.
well, I think that's James, part of what made the Union one special. I think
absolutely.
He deserved that, man. He's put a lot of time in it. Like,
I want the guys who deserve the merit, and maybe they're not a household name, but they are in the game, and we all know who they are. I mean, I knew of Concepts before I knew who Dion was. You know what I'm saying? I knew of Riff before I knew who Jeff is, but they are all part of this world. You know what I mean? They know, they've been in it. They started out like we did. I love like Brooklyn Projects. I'm a big fan of Brooklyn Projects. They had great collaborations for the longest time. Like, I need guys like that.
Well, you know what I love, James, just recently was the Notre Dunk.
Absolutely.
That was awesome. I mean, those guys, and I think those guys deserved it. I love their story. I thought it was. I didn't critic cop, but what's new? But I think it was a great,
right.
You know, toss and collab to them. I really did.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, nobody does collaborations as good as New Balance and Nike and Saucony. I mean, Adidas is terrible at them. They do them really well. I just want more, and I want it to be more than just the name attached to it. I want it to be somebody who, I don't always need it to be like, it can be a Sean Cliver. I'm cool with that. A guy who has something to say. You know, it can be an upcoming artist. It could be a well-known artist. I love the cause collaborations.
How about an Ivy brand and New Balance collab?
I'm saying, right? Like, I want somebody, and I want them to tell me the backstory. Like, what made Sean Witherspoon's collaboration interesting was because it was a collaborative effort between guys who were respected in the scene. And the reason why that shoe became so big wasn't necessarily because Sean did it. It's because everybody that was involved in it spread the word out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That shoe was losing up until the last day in that thing. It was getting beat. And I didn't vote for it.
Neither did I.
I didn't think it was. No. I didn't think it was the best shoe when it dropped. I don't know how, but I have 3 pairs of that shoe, and I won every raffle, including the, you know what I'm saying, every single one.
Damn, that's amazing.
Like, it's cool to have, but I look at it as it wasn't one person's vision. It was a bunch of sneakerheads and people within this world who came together and
like you said, James, it was to me the worst, not the worst choice, but it wasn't the top choice in that round. Like, I didn't choose that shoe, you know.
Right, and that's the things that I like. I want the center of the country to have representation. I want a shoe that comes out of the middle of the country because we wear shoes in this part of the world. You know what I'm saying? I'll take on anybody on both sides. You know what I'm saying? And like,
well, I mean, that was like like James, the second round. I don't know, second round or second time when they did a bunch of the Air Maxes, and you had London, New York, right? You had the Tokyo. I mean, one of the more fire pairs was that the New York pair that the girl that I forget her name who had released, and that pair was like slept on. It like hit outlets, but the pair, like, she added like the colors of the Statue of Liberty, and like that to me that's the special stuff. Like, there's little things that you throw in there,
right?
Versus like a corduroy, you know, pastel color shoe. Okay, great, but the hype. But that other shoe, that 97 that she did based on New York, was slept on. The Tokyo Mazes, I have them. I love them. A lot of people like that shoe's hideous. I love the shoe. I love the print. I love the story of what the Tokyo Maze is about. You know, the transit system. Like,
sure,
it's a story. It's a story.
I want shoes that someone has something to say, someone has something, like the Norte ones, for example, the little handshake that would be something on the swoosh, like, that's dope. And then they tell you why they put that there, or they tell you why they use these materials.
And I love, James, the tongue with the tongue that had the like the nameplate that you wear on a worker's outfit. Like, that stuff is, those little touches to me are like, wow.
Very blue collar shoe, because that's what the shoe was meant to be, you know. And I want, like, I don't need Murakami everything. You know what I'm saying? I don't need Cause everything. Give me something different. Like the J Balvin's I was getting ready to say. Like that shoe is loud and crazy, and it's not meant for everybody. But guess what? That shoe is crazy and it's different, and I appreciate it. So give me the goods. You know what I mean? So who's next? For me, it's more important who's telling the story as opposed to what the shoe is completely like. What the shoe looked like is great. That's the final product, but it's everything leading up to it and what's the message that's coming from it that I really care to listen to. You know what I'm saying? Give me a perspective that I have yet to see. Change it, and don't do it every week because I don't need a collaboration every week because that takes away from what the brand is in general.
Sure. All right, Dave, I know you got to run, Dave.
Yeah, I got to take off.
Okay.
Thank you guys. I'll get you guys back soon.
Okay.
We got some other stuff coming up, but I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to come out.
Appreciate you inviting.
And talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk. Definitely can't wait for the next OTC show. So get to work on that.
Good. Be well, guys. God bless.
All right, guys.
Man.
Be good, man.